Get some instant analysis. Welcome in CBS Sports HQ hockey analyst Pete Blackburn. And Pete, you know Brad Marchand very well. Helped the Bruins win a Stanley Cup. Now one win away from helping the Panthers, his new club, traded winning a Stanley Cup. 2 goals in this Stanley Cup Final Game 5 and 6 for the series. I just said it. He matches Wayne Gretzky in 1985. Wayne Gretzky and Brad Marchand in the same sentence. We'll talk about the rest of this game in a moment, but Brad Marchand, what he did in this game meant what to Florida?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that it was the difference because I just think that Florida was so much better than Edmonton in this game, and Brad Marchand was certainly part of it and had 2 of the best highlights, probably the best highlight of the game. We're talking about Brad Marchand and the Conn Smythe conversation for the Florida Panthers, who are now 1 win away from hoisting a 2nd straight Stanley Cup. So, you know, not bad for a mid-season acquisition for Bill Zito here. Getting a Conn Smythe winner for potentially a first-round pick, not too bad, not too shabby. But I mean, this is just adding to the legacy of Brad Marchand, right? Win or lose, he gets to say that he has now done this for a 2nd team in the Stanley Cup Final. I believe he's one of the only players to score 5+ goals in a Stanley Cup Final for 2 separate teams. So that's pretty special, and what he's doing and fitting in Florida and being a difference maker has made a huge difference for them now twice in this series.
Yeah, his 12th career Stanley Cup Final goal, most among active players, and he probably still has a couple of seasons left under his belt in the National Hockey League. Look, the Panthers were resilient. We talked about why you would believe in Florida after what just happened in Game 4. And Pete, you said pregame, this is who they are. This is the brand of hockey they play. They proved you right once again.
Yeah, and it was like basically a perfect Florida Panthers game, right? And so that shouldn't surprise anybody. Bouncing back from what was a really tough loss to swallow, you saw a very, very patented Florida Panthers game in the way that they suffocated Edmonton from a defensive perspective. Unbelievable game from Gustav Forsling on the defensive end, but just a great defensive effort from Florida all around. 3 total high danger chances for the Oilers in this game at 5-on-5, 1 in each period. And, you know, through 40 minutes, I was thinking about it and asking the question, how many do you think they have from the eye test? 2 probably seemed a bit generous after 40 minutes. And so you look at the shot chart that I just checked after this game, the Oilers got nothing in terms of shot generation in front of Sergei Bobrovsky in this game. And it took until late in the game with the goalie pulled for them to just start throwing everything at net, which they should have been doing that earlier on in this game. They needed a little bit more desperation. They needed a little bit more, don't look to overpass. I found at several points in this game, I was frustrated with Connor McDavid for how passive he was. You want him to start taking over games. He's got a chance in Game 6, or otherwise the Edmonton season could be over. So Connor McDavid has to have a bigger impact. I know he scored late in this game, but I was a bit frustrated by his performance in Game 5.
Yeah, make it make sense, right? Because they were 0 for 3 on the power play early, and that's what they ended up on, 0 for 3. They generated just 11 shots through 2 periods. Here you're coming off this emotional win in Game 4 on the road. You're coming home to your fans. You have home ice advantage, at least for the night. And you're not able to generate offense. Make it make sense, Pete, because I'm confused as why they weren't able to get going.
I wish I had an answer for you, and I bet Chris Knobloch does too. It's frustrating, and especially when you're considering the Oilers, who have spent so much of this series kind of chasing games. And that's been the case for them throughout the playoffs, is that they've had to chase games. Unfortunately for them, they're chasing games against the Florida Panthers. You can do it against a lot of these other teams they played in the playoffs. No disrespect or no knocking some of these other teams that were really talented teams. But you're messing with fire when you're going down and trying to chase games against Florida. Yeah, it worked out for them in Game 4, but you're not often going to get that result. And we saw it here in Game 5. Florida locked in, and as soon as I would say the turning point for me was when Sam Reinhart took that puck over glass penalty in the 2nd period, a gift of a power play to the Edmonton Oilers, and they did nothing with it. That to me felt like, okay, this game is probably not going to go in Edmonton's direction. But With the remaining 2 games, if they want to keep their season alive and if they want to hoist the Stanley Cup at the end of this thing, they have to stop spending so much of the game chasing it. They need to dictate, and they just haven't done it enough in this series so far.
Yeah, and now, look, you have to go back to the conversation about who's going to be in net. And oftentimes when you're flip-flopping around, Pete, you know this, if you're flip-flopping goaltenders in the Stanley Cup Final, it's probably too little too late, like the great JoJo once sang. Like, this is a situation here where now you're probably going to go back to Stuart Skinner, right?
I would think so. By the way, I did not expect to get a JoJo reference in a Game 5.
I love JoJo. I want to be on the record saying that.
Pride of Massachusetts, baby. Absolutely. I mean, in the words of Michael Scott, snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap is what we're getting in net for the Edmonton Oilers in this series. But yeah, I would go back to Stuart Skinner. I think that he has a higher ceiling for you. The reason that you start Calvin Pickard in this game was because he helped you in Game 4, and he was the horse that you rode out on, and you just stay on that horse. I think now you go back to Stuart Skinner because he gives you a higher ceiling in terms of goaltending, and if you need one of these guys to steal you a game, you're probably more likely to get it from Stu Skinner. But obviously, you don't want to be in the position where you keep going back and forth between these guys. Have some stability, but in the same token, I look at the games that they've lost, particularly this one and Game 3. It's just 2 games that you cannot blame the goaltending because everybody in that uniform was not nearly good enough, did not nearly show enough desperation. It's easy to blame the goaltending. It's a fool's takeaway to say that the goaltending lost them either one of those games.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, but now they got to figure out what they're going to do here in Game 6. Pete, do we get a Game 7 like we had last year? Or are we getting the Panthers celebrating on their home ice for the 2nd year in a row?
Yeah, I believe in the Oilers' resiliency. I believe in, I said it since the outset, I feel like this is destined to go 7 games. I'm not going to back off of that here. I'm just very discouraged by the lack of desperation and the lack of urgency that we saw from Edmonton in this game, with an opportunity to seize control of the series and have 2 chances at putting it away. Very, very disappointed, especially after the position that they put themselves in with Game 4 and the comeback. Like, you earned yourself a reset here and had an opportunity to really feel lucky to seize control of this series and not be down 3-1 after that Game 4. To come out so flat and so, not urgent in this Game 5 at home, very, very disappointing from Edmonton's end.
Game 6 back in Sunrise on Tuesday. Teams that go up 3-2 in the Stanley Cup Final go on to win the series 82% of the time. Pete Blackburn here with us on CBS Sports HQ. Pete, thanks.
Thank you.
How about this? The 3rd most games with 5 or more goals in a postseason. The Panthers with 12 such games. And the previous 2 teams, the Islanders, they went on to win the title. Panthers 1 win away from back-to-back Stanley Cup titles. Still ahead, we will relive the drama plus when Chris Knobloch steps to the podium. We'll bring it to you here on CBS Sports HQ. The Panthers take Game 5. Now the Oilers looking to go back to Sunrise and even it up and force another Game 7 like last year. Keep it locked. You're watching CBS Sports HQ. Recapping Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final, Brad Marchand with a multi-goal game. First player with 6 goals in a Stanley Cup Final since Wayne Gretzky in 1985. And there was no comeback in this one for Edmonton. 5-2 the final on the road for Florida. Now coming home on Tuesday with a chance to win back-to-back Stanley Cup trophies on their home ice. Here we go. The Florida Panthers 1 win away. And let's get right to the site. Back out to Edmonton. Welcoming CBS Sports HQ reporter Mike Cugno, who joins us ringside. And Mike, Brad Marchand comes over in a trade at the deadline. What are you thinking at that point? Because you knew about his reputation, and then he joins this team, and he fits in seamlessly.
Yeah, the first thing I think everyone in South Florida thought, I know it was my first thought, imagine him next to Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. That could be the most annoying trio in hockey. And right now, those three being a little annoying to the Oilers, especially Bennett and Marchand. This team, this Panthers team, 3-1 in this series when both those guys score in the same goal in the same game here in the Stanley Cup Final. But Marchand, such a spark plug offensively for this team. When it looked like there was lulls in this game, Brad Marchand was there to remind them, guys, we're a couple wins away here from doing it. That second period, there was about 7 minutes where the Cats only had one shot on net. And Marchand just exploded down the ice, took the puck from about the red line, got to Calvin Pickard, didn't score, but started generating the offense again. And that kind of like woke this team up. Remember, we saw that collapse in the second period in Game 4. That wasn't going to happen tonight for the Panthers.
I asked you after Game 4 why there's belief, why the Panthers would have belief. And you said, look, they blew a three-game lead last year and still won the Stanley Cup. They know how to be resilient. What did you see out of them in this game where you knew that they were locked in? Even when the Oilers made it a 3-1 game, Sam Reinhart comes back and essentially shuts the door.
Never taking their foot off the gas. That's basically what they've been preaching from the beginning of this series. They could not do it. And again, there were those moments in that second period today where it kind of looked that way, and all it took was one player. Today, it just happened to be Brad Marchand to remind them where they were, how close they were. And you also have to give this team credit. For whatever reason, they figure it out on the road. Now 10-3 away from home ice. They like coming to road buildings because they say they like to just get together with each other, just focus on the game, no friends, no families, no distractions. And you can kind of see that focus regenerate here today. You know, this morning they had a light morning skate. Brad Marchand says he likes to be on the ice early, just feel the puck, get your shot going, and look what ends up happening. His shot was going, ends up with 2, and again, ends up being the straw that stirred the drink for the Cats in this one.
All right, Mike, so you were there last year when they won the Stanley Cup trophy. They got a chance now to go back home and win it on home ice on Tuesday night. What do you anticipate the vibes, the scene to be like in South Florida come Tuesday night?
A lot of tension after what we've seen so far in this series. I don't think anyone's expecting another 6-1 blowout like we saw in Game 3. Even this one had a little bit of that blowout feel, even though the Oilers cut it to 2 goals in the third period twice. I just don't think anyone, even the fans, are going to get complacent. And who knows, maybe they end up being a little driving force if they feel things get kind of stale or stagnant for the Cats. I expect tension. And in fact, I'm not trying to predict or make a hot take here. I still think this thing goes 7. This series just feels that way. It seems like every time the Panthers take a big swing, the Oilers always respond. The series isn't over until it's over, and this certainly still feels like a 7-game series potentially.
All right, Mike Cugno from Edmonton, and he thinks he's going to be going back to Edmonton for a Game 7. How about that? That would be incredible. Back-to-back Stanley Cups going to a Game 7. The Panthers not wanting to try to go to a Game 7. They want to finish the job at home on Tuesday night, trying to go back-to-back and make it 2 in a row on their home ice.